Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Motor Vehicle and Transportation Subcommittee meeting. We have a number of bills to take up this evening. The first bill we will take up is actually a bill that we considered and voted out last week. Oh, I just got another recording notice. So I'll start over. Welcome to the Motor Vehicle and Transportation Subcommittee. For February 8th, we have a number of bills to take up. We're going to start with a bill that we actually voted out last week. And thanks to a question by Delegate Morgan and the eagle eye of our chair, we have an amendment that we are bringing to the subcommittee. So you may recall at the end of the discussion on HB 113, the minors horses minors must wear helmets on horses bill. Delegate Morgan asked if the fairs and carnivals were out, and I said yes. The bill as it was written, not entirely clear. So we have an amendment to make that absolutely clear. Patrick, can you I don't know if you can share your screen or just tell folks what the amendment is.
I'd be glad to describe it. If Gretchen can share, can you share, Gretchen? This is the amendment to House Bill 113.
Right. It's going to take me a minute to do that, but why don't you start talking and I will find it and see what I can do.
Fair enough. Basically, it says that this whole provision applies only to horse riding on a highway, that was in the original bill, a public horse riding path or trail, again in the original bill, and then here's the new language. It's subparagraph 3, the grounds of a facility, A, whose primary purpose is equestrian activities, in other words, not a circus and not a fair, as the Delegate Morgan was talking about, and it says or, but it's going to be and that solicits or offers to the public recreational, educational, or competitive equestrian activities. That is the same language that was in last week. You see the new language under 3A there? That cuts out the fairs and the circuses and the like.
Okay.
Good.
But it leaves in Senator Jennings' farm and his daughter and all of that riding on horses.
Yeah, so they're not covered by this bill. And just so you all know, I spoke with Senator Jennings, went over this language with him, showed it to him. He is fine with this language. He is good.
I propose we move the amendment.
Is there a second? Great. Any further discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor of the amendment, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Any opposed? Excellent. The amendment passes. On the bill?
Move favorable.
Second.
Any further discussion? Seeing nothing. On the bill as amended, all in favor say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Excellent. They all pass unanimously. Thank you all very much for that. Okay, moving ahead to the next bill on our list, HB 43, Delegate Stewart's bill on the registration for golf carts. Many of you will remember over the years, we have had people come to us asking for the ability to allow golf carts to drive on the roads without registration. So Patrick, you want to lead us through what the bill does?
Yeah. I can find you all again. There you are. This bill essentially takes the general current law that applies to selected areas of the state and makes it statewide. It authorizes the operation of a golf cart on a county or municipal highway, not the state highway, without registration. And it requires that operation must be on a highway with a maximum posted speed limit does not exceed 30 miles an hour. We do have an amendment from Delegate Vaughn to increase that to 35. Get to that. between dawn and dusk, and if the golf cart is equipped with appropriate lighting. You're supposed to drive the golf cart as far to the right of the roadway as feasible, and you have to possess a driver's license. And then it allows the governing body of the county or municipality, whoever owns the road, to authorize the highways on which they can operate the golf carts. Now, one thing we might want to consider is that did Delegate Stewart, does your bill repeal? You leave one in and you take it out. That's Chrisfield. Now, Chrisfield does cross a state road.
But it's the only road you can cross to get into Chrisfield.
That's right.
Just want to bring that up for consideration.
Yeah, I mean, I think my intent, Patrick, would be to basically do nothing to disrupt the jurisdictions that already have this. So I would err on, and that's why I submitted that amendment for 35 miles per hour. I actually think 30 is more appropriate. That's why I put the bill in originally in that posture. But after learning that the committee has actually passed these sort of one-off exemptions at 35, and because I wanted to kind of create a statewide standard, I'm putting in that amendment to 35. So consistent with that, I think my preference would be to draft this in a way that it does not disturb the jurisdictions that have, and sort of either grandfather them in or kind of build a statewide bill around what they already have.
Yeah, and to be fair, the Chrisfield provision in statute does not mention the state highway. It's just a given. They can't do anything on a state highway without state highway permission. So they negotiated and found appropriate, and all they did was cross the highway. They didn't use the highway, and they came to an agreement at some level. And
wait, Delegate Healy, I see you. We've got Delegate Guyton, Delegate Davis, and then Delegate Healy. Delegate Guyton? You're muted.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I really appreciate this bill. Can you hear me now? All right.
Yeah.
I appreciate this bill very much. I think it's a great way to cut down on larger vehicles, louder vehicles, more dangerous vehicles on the roadway. I also was going to suggest before you suggested that 35 is a more appropriate speed limit, since that is very standardized across a lot of places. My one question on the bill that I don't think is addressed is that it says dawn to dusk for these vehicles. I often hang out in a place where golf carts are a main transportation source, and they are, well, to be out at night, which they are allowed to be, they have basically headlights on them. Is that not something that we would consider safe in these situations?
Madam Chair, do you want me to answer that? Okay.
Yes, please.
Delegate, and I appreciate your support of the bill, and I appreciate those remarks, and I think you raise an excellent point. I do think that you're right that golf carts are sometimes equipped with headlights. If they're even more souped up than that, we actually call them low-speed vehicles, and then they become completely road safe. I am open to an amendment, suggesting that basically it's dawn until dusk, and then comma unless you got lights. But but at the same point, I will leave it up to the subcommittee, but I certainly would not be opposed to that amendment personally.
Okay. Well,
Thank you so much. Just a follow up. It is legal that bikes be out after night as long as they are well lit and have appropriate lights. Bicycles, is that correct? Okay.
reflectors.
reflectors, you said, Patrick?
Yes. I don't think there's a lighting requirement for bicycles.
Oh, there is where I go.
Thank you, Delegate Guyton. Delegate Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I, at first, when I heard about the bill, I was really concerned that the committee historically had tight reins on who was able to do this. Matter of fact, I've been trying to do this for my county. But after I talked with Vaughn about it, he stated that there were going to be guardrails. So I am really excited about supporting the bill with guardrails. And I think guardrails are important. The whole reason that this committee, that this committee wouldn't allow them or wanted special permission, wanted you to ask for special permission to get this right, is important to me. And so I just wanted to say that I can support it with guardrails. Thank you.
Thank you,
Oh,
Delegate Davis.
and that it could be perspective. We can just make it perspective. We don't have to talk about the old, we don't have to amend the law to deal with the ones that are already in effect. We can just make it perspective. That's my 2-cent word. Thank you.
Thank you, Delegate Davis. Delegate Healy?
Yeah, I just would like to, I'm kind of agnostic about this bill at this point, but I wanted to explain some of the thinking that went into how this has evolved to this point. I'm ready for it to evolve beyond where it is now, but I think it's good for the subcommittee to know a little bit of the background. We started out with Chrisfield because Chrisfield's at the end of the road. I mean, there's nothing there. It's a long neck and there's only one road in and one road out. And that was, we knew then when we did allow it there that, I thought that the city of Chrisfield actually did allow it on their city streets at that time, but they couldn't cross the state highway to get to the rest of the city or get to where the port is, where people coming to go. That was the whole thing, was people coming in by boat and needed to get around to go to the grocery store or do whatever. And rather than rent a car for something like that, it seemed reasonable. So that was the first step. After that, other places came in, and they were always in a remote area where there wasn't a lot of cross traffic from other places. And so it would be down in St. Mary's County, somewhere on a neck, somewhere where it was a closed community, and just other people could go into that community and ride around on the municipal streets that way. But I'm just saying that that's how we had it tightened up. I've visited places in Florida where they have zones within a town where people can ride around. My concern is the safety concern about how safe and insurance about these vehicles. If they get hit, they don't have windows. They don't have a lot of protection for the people sitting in them. I've seen people with children on their laps. They don't have seat belts. It's fine if there's not a lot of opportunity for other kinds of vehicles hitting them. But I want to see what your bill, I want to ask Delegate Stewart, if you have thought about that, and if you have any ideas about how to make sure that if we allow this more generically, I know that the locals will want to make it as safe as they can for their people, but still, can you get car insurance for this? I don't even know.
Delegate Stewart?
Sure. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thanks, Delegate Healy, for that context and the history of this. I'm not sure about the car insurance issue. I would imagine that because there is personal property insurance on a variety of personal property items, that you could get insurance. It probably wouldn't look like car insurance, but you can insure almost any valuable personal property. So I think that you could find an insurance carrier to cover your golf cart, and I'm sure there are plenty of people that do have insurance.
Well, I was thinking more of personal injury protection in a vehicle.
Oh, yeah. Well, yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I would assume possibly that if you have, if a driver, because we do say that you have to have a driver's license under the bill. I would assume the driver, because they have to get their own personal insurance. I'm not sure if that would apply to their usage in golf carts, or not. But what I will say, and I did think about this sort of crashworthiness issue. And I just tried to think about parallels to other types of vehicles. And, Delegate Guyton brought up bicycles, and obviously we've been hearing a lot about e-bikes lately as well. Those are even less crashworthy, in the sense that they're basically not at all. E-bikes, and actually you can kind of Google e-bike golf cart, and you can see a lot of these types of vehicles that are kind of in between. you know, and actually like they sometimes they even have shells on them, and it's kind of hard to say where they categorize as a golf cart or not. Sometimes they have like 3 wheels, and they're motorized and they're electric, and maybe there's a pedal component, but sometimes there's not. So I feel like what's a golf cart and what's an e-bike kind of starts, you know, it can even be kind of an issue that is murky, but it's definitely the case that e-bikes, the default is that local jurisdictions have the ability to allow e-bikes on their roads if they want to. It's only golf carts. That's the only vehicle that we require counties to come get permission from this committee for. Bikes, they can allow it on their streets. E-bikes, they can allow it on their streets. Other types of like buggies, you know, that are being pulled around by bikes, and all of those things are much less crash worthy if someone were to run into them, and generally slower than a golf cart. So when I was trying to think of like what the analogies are here, I just couldn't really come to grips with the fact that we've carved out this such a narrow path to legality for this one vehicle, which is faster than other types of vehicles. It's less or more crash worthy than various types of vehicles. You could draft a continuum of vehicles across a bunch of different independent variables, and golf carts would be all over the map. But why do we pick this one in particular and I think it's just, as you said, history. It's just, this is how things ended up arising, but I don't know if it really makes a whole lot of sense. And if you look at the nationwide picture of this, we are one of, as I mentioned in my testimony, one of 5 states. I think I actually said we were one of 6. And since last session, when I first looked up this issue, I think another state actually went this way. And so only 5 states, Delaware, Hawaii, Missouri, Rhode Island, and Maryland, have a blanket prohibition on golf carts, and they make counties come to them or cities come to them on a 1-to-1 basis to carve out exceptions to that broad prohibition. And the reality is you just don't see a whole lot of accidents. You actually see way more accidents involving pedestrians, bikes, and cars. And I think to Delegate Guyton's point, this is really, I think, a traffic safety bill more than anything, because when you put slower vehicles on a road that maybe you can only go 25 or 30, and all of a sudden you're putting a bunch of vehicles on there going 16, that's actually lowering the rate of speed and helping pedestrians and helping cyclists have a more friendly environment. And that's why we picked Crisfield. That's also why places like the Villages in Florida have lots of golf carts. It's a nice environment. You know, these are clean. They're EVs. They're easy for older folks to drive. They're easier for younger folks to drive, though you do need a license to drive one under this bill. And it creates a more inviting atmosphere for not only the people that are in the golf cart, but the people outside of the golf cart as well.
Yeah, I don't disagree with you, Delegate, and I thank you for all of that. That helps a lot. I want to make sure that the bill does say it's electric only, not because there are gas-powered golf carts. And so if we're going to go that route, if we're going to allow, we might as well be as environmentally friendly as we can, and make sure that it's enabling legislation so that they have to adopt local regulations that suit their own roads and streets.
Yeah, and like you said, Elliot Healy, I fundamentally just trust the locals. I mean, that's really what this boils down to. Is, I mean, yeah, you may have some rogue jurisdictions that could try to do some weird stuff. That's why we do have the guardrails in, as Delegate Davis said. But at the same time, you know, I think most of our jurisdictions, if not 100% of them, they don't want people dying because of golf carts either. And they're going to craft these things thoughtfully, and they're going to put them only in the places.
Is that me or Delegate Stewart?
I think Delegate Stewart froze.
Delegate Stewart froze.
Where
Okay.
where they need and if, you know, hey, if there ends up being oh, sorry about that. I was just going to say, if there ends
We can come back. Okay, Delegate Jacobs.
He's down in the dungeon there. He's got bad signal. You know, Patrick, I guess I have a question for you, but you know, the Crisfield legislation, it took 4 years before we ever passed that bill. It was like Norm Conway tried a couple times, and I think Matthias tried it once or twice, you know, before we worked out all the details on that. But Crisfield, you know, they got that big state-owned marina down there, and they had no public transportation. And you know, they really needed some sort of thing down there, and they got the exception to do a 90-degree cross across 413 exception. And that's the only town I know of that's got an exception that goes across a state road. But my question to you, Patrick, if I remember correctly, I can't find the information, but I thought we passed that legislation where they had to have headlights and taillights on that golf cart. When
They have to have lighting as required by the Motor Vehicle Administration.
yeah, that's what I thought. I thought it required lighting. And didn't it have seat belts too?
No, I don't think so.
Oh, really? Well,
I don't
anyhow,
think golf carts have seatbelts.
well, the low
Some do.
speed, the ones that are light tagged with low speed vehicles, which are like modified golf carts, they got seat belts and
Yes,
all that.
there are federal standards for low-speed vehicles, and low-speed vehicles are registered. You can register low-speed vehicles and drive them on any highway in Maryland. They're not. They're different from golf carts.
Yes, yeah, I understand that, but I know they got seat belts. I wasn't
Yes.
sure. I thought we put lighting on the golf carts is why I was asking you that in Chrisfield especially.
In Chrisfield, it says if the golf cart is equipped with lighting devices as required by the Motor Vehicle Administration.
And that's what this bill says too. I had forgotten about that when I was responding to Delegate Guyton about saying unless they have lights. I mean, I guess a more elegant amendment would just be eliminating the dawn at dusk requirement, because we are requiring them to have lighting per the bill.
Right.
Well, it's not necessarily headlights though. We might want to check to see what MVA requires them to have before we
Yeah.
do that.
Yeah. But I thought I remembered lighting, and that's why I brought that up. And the other thing is, when we passed the Taylor's Island legislation, I think it was a couple years ago, I actually made the motion to get the amendment on to make it electric only, and then the Senate knocked it out and took that out of that bill, and took that specific EV part of it. They took it out of the legislation. So I don't know if you make this EV only, whether that'll change what happened in Taylor's Island or not. Also,
I think it's a tough sell to say you can use this golf cart, but not this one.
that's what I'm saying. That I think that happened in that legislation for Taylor's Island. I just want to make everybody aware of it.
Thank you. I think I saw Delegate Morgan. Did you have a question?
I did. I wanted to jump on that where Delegate Jacobs and Delegate Healy. We have a lot of golf carts out by us that are not electric, and I think say you can only do electric golf carts. So what do the people do that have gas or diesel power golf carts down by us? And all of a sudden, you can't have that golf cart anymore. So I'd really be opposed to specifying the type of golf cart and how it's powered would have to go.
Thank you. April, I was going to get to you. I was actually going to call on you. But before I do that, Delegate Davis, you have your hand up.
Yes. I am definitely in support of more guardrails, and the idea of dusk to dawn is important. And the idea that jurisdictions, I was a former commissioner for 8 years. The idea that jurisdictions can make that decision for themselves, well, they're more subjected to pressure from the citizenry at the lower levels. I believe we can't go from one extreme to the other where you're asking for it every year and then now it's just you can do what you want. I believe we need to make sure we have guardrails, and I like dusk to dawn, and if they want it more than dusk to dawn, they could come and ask for it. But there's nothing that says you can't have it. You just have to come and ask for it. That's what I'd support. Thank you.
Thank you. April, MVA's take on this.
So we are in no position on this bill at all, but I just wanted to point, Patrick, they were talking about the requirements for the golf carts. We do require golf carts to have headlights. So I just wanted to put that on the record.
Great, thank you. And actually, while I have you, Patrick, you and I had been talking about the not driving on a state highway or not crossing a state highway without SHA's authority, as two potential other things to add. So I want to
Would
throw
they-
that out to the committee. And also, April, do you have any thoughts on those two?
I do not have any thoughts on that. I can go back to our highway safety office just to see if they have a certain position on that wording. But I don't see any issue with any of that.
Well, the thing is that it's implicit, very implicit. The golf
Okay.
carts would not be able to be on or cross state highways without state highway permission. They own the roads.
Understood. Let me reach out to State Highway. They are not on, are they? Are they on this?
They are not.
Okay. Let me reach out to our State Highway reps, and then I can make sure they get back with you.
Okay, so to close us out, I think I heard leaving between dawn and dusk, there was a discussion of unless equipped with headlights, but they'll have headlights. So we're gonna just leave between dawn and dusk?
And can I ask Delegate Stewart a couple of questions before we close this out?
Of course, of course.
Delegate Stewart, first of all, you talk about this research, and the chair and I were wondering if you could share it with us so we'd have background for not just for our edification, but also for the floor or anything like that.
Yeah, of course, of course.
And second, Delegate Stewart, you mentioned 30 to 35. We can make it 30 and just create an exception for the ones that already have 35 or the one that already has 35.
Yeah,
That way
yeah, and
everyone
I'm
will be
open to that.
comfortable.
And I think hopefully my internet survives here. I would say my slogan about this is honestly just will of the subcommittee. Like if y'all want to leave dusk until dawn in the bill as a requirement, if that's the will of the subcommittee, it's good with me. Y'all want to take it out, good with me. Y'all want to lower it to keep it as 30 in the bill and provide an exemption, good with me. I honestly think that the fundamental bill will survive, and I think it's fundamentally a step in the right direction on all sorts of levels. And I think these small details, I'll leave it up to y'all.
Okay, I see Delegate Guyton, Delegate Jacobs, Delegate Healy, and then I'm going to wrap us up because we have other bills and we are going to obviously come back to this bill. Yes, Delegate Guyton.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for bringing it and being able to discuss it with us. I guess my question, I just want to push back one more time that there is no other place that I know of, and this is my question for Delegate Stewart, other states that only allow lighted vehicles like golf carts from dawn to dusk. But I'm not sure of all the laws, right? I just don't think that that's consistent with at least the places that I know. And what I do recognize is back in the day, I grew up in a beach town. Back in the day when you weren't allowed to, many years ago, people would drive them in the dark without the light so they wouldn't be caught, even if they had the light. So that's also another concern. I think if people are going to be able to drive golf carts that have headlights like cars, more, probably much more safe than the bikes, that they should be able to drive them and not have to go and switch to another vehicle. There are some places that don't allow gas vehicles in the United States because they've gone to all golf carts. And I think that's a much better way to go. So I just would say, I would like for us to at least consider it because it seems like an unfair, and unnecessary step.
Thank you. Delegate Jacobs?
Thank you. One thing I wanted to mention that most of these golf cart allowances for jurisdictions we've allowed them in are kind of like resort communities, and like where I live in Rock Hall, I mean, and is similar. It's a dead end, and it's a bayfront community. But a lot of these little resort towns where I can see where the golf carts would be used, including Chrisfield, if we go dusk to dawn, so many people that go out to dinner and take the golf cart, and then it gets dark before they leave the restaurant. That's going to be a problem if we cut it off at dusk, I think. And listen, I'm for safety and guardrails, but I just think that that's a problem if we limit that, to you gotta be home like Cinderella, you know.
Thank you. Chair
We'll
Healy
call
for the last
We'll
comment.
call it the Cinderella amendment.
I'll pass. We could just move on with the discussion. Thank you.
Got it. Okay, so we've had a great discussion. Thank you all. If you have amendments, please make sure to work with Patrick on them. Patrick, they should go work with you, correct?
Yes.
Yes, so please work with Patrick on them and bring them to our next subcommittee meeting. And hopefully we can move forward on this bill. Thank you all for a really wonderful, robust discussion. Okay, we are going to move on to go a little bit out of alphabetical order. We're going to go to HB 178, Delegate Griffith, Vehicle Laws, Disabled Veteran Registration. I will remind all of you that we passed this bill out. It was HB 250 in 2023. It passed out of the committee unanimously. It passed off the floor unanimously. So, do people want Patrick to walk us through the bill, or do we want to make a motion?
I'll make
I
a
move
motion.
favorably.
Seconded.
Second.
Excellent. It's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion?
Nope.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Great. HB 178 passes unanimously. Thank you, everyone. Okay, HB 161. This is a departmental vehicle laws, driver's license, learners, instructional permits, and identification cards. Patrick, you want to lead us through this?
Yeah, give me a second. Oh, I'm sorry. What number is this again?
161?
161. Okay, sorry. Here we go. This bill basically has three parts, as the title identifies: driver's license, learners, instructional permits, and identification cards. For ID cards, it makes it easier, actually easier on the NVA too, by authorizing them to give no-fee ID cards to a variety of people who may have a tough time getting them. People recently released from correctional facilities or care of juvenile justice, 15 to 20-year-olds who are in the program with Department of Human Services, currently homeless and under the care of the Maryland Department of Health, and then a catch-all for anything else the administration sees that might be a tough situation, especially for young people. That's the ID cards, and then the for the driver's licenses, it says that driver's license remain in effect for people working on behalf of a federal agency or branch of the armed services who are absent from the country or a dependent of those people. The driver's licenses would stay in effect. That's the same provision as is the case now for armed services. And then learners instructional permits, it just extends from basically 6 months to a year. The length that a learner's permit stays valid for somebody who's changing the class of license. And the testimony seemed to indicate this was mostly motorcycles. Is that right, April?
Correct.
Thank you, Patrick. And with respect to the driver's licenses, what it is they used to be charged, I think, $1, and now it's saying a fee is not required for the category that Patrick listed. And the reason behind that was it was costing MVA more to charge that $1 than
I like it.
than they were getting. Yes, April. April, did
Sorry,
you have something?
Yes, just want to clarify. It's just the ID card, not the driver's license. So those are just
I'm
two
sorry, the
separate
ID card.
products.
Yes,
I'm sorry. I just wanted to put that on the record.
Thank you. Thank you. I misspoke. I appreciate
Yeah,
that.
no problem.
I always appreciate the corrections. Okay, any discussion? Is there a motion?
So moved.
Delegate Morgan?
Second.
I just want to make sure I'm clear on the identification card. The person, I'm on page 2. The person has to present the identification card is issued by the Department of Credit that displays the specified information and the Social Security card. Does this mean that everyone who is going to get this identification card has to have both of those things? Has to have a Social Security card for one?
April?
What line are you on?
I'm looking on page 2. Oh, I'm looking at the fiscal note, Patrick, real quick. You go to page 2 and it talks about 65 or blah, blah, blah. Next paragraph. In addition, MV must issue an identification card at no cost to the individual applies for identification and presents a DOC piece of paper and a social security card. So my real question is, you have to have a social security card in order to get an identification card.
Yeah, you have to have real ID documents to get the an ID card. Yes.
That's all. Thank you.
Oh,
Any
April, is
other
that right?
questions?
yeah, I have a question.
Yes, that is correct. I'm taking a look. I just want to make sure that that is correct for these individuals as well. So if you could just give me just 1 minute, I just want to make sure that I'm not misspeaking.
Well,
Thank
I think the provisions are basically the same for ID cards and licenses because they're the type of things that get you on airplanes, get you in federal buildings and the like.
Correct, correct. So there are federal guidelines that we have to follow. We just wanted to make it easier for those individuals. And right now we require a dollar just cash. So it's very difficult for some individuals to have that on them. And it's also very difficult for our operations to make sure we're keeping track of that correctly.
And Delegate Morgan, this requirement is not part of the bill. That's just part of the current law.
Okay, thank you.
Delegate Healy.
Yeah, Patrick, we do have some kind of I know we have a 2-tiered driver's license where undocumented people can get a driver's license. It's just not good as a real ID.
Correct.
Do we have ID cards that are not real IDs that we give to people as well?
I don't know if you need that for an ID card because you need it for a driver's license so they can drive, go to
Right.
work and things like that. But an ID card is pure identification card. So I don't think there's a need to bifurcate it like that.
Well, there might be because, you know, sometimes you need a government issued ID for just getting into, you know, a concert or something. You know, I mean, there are places where people just are being asked for identification.
Yeah, buy liquor, I
cards.
guess.
What?
Buy liquor, I guess.
Maybe.
Yeah, although
Yeah, especially young people buy cigarettes, buy liquor, buy a lottery ticket, all of that.
To
Although
my
that is-
knowledge,
sorry, go ahead, Patrick.
I was just gonna say, I'll look it up, but to my knowledge, I think I only remember the license being bifurcated like that, but I can check.
Okay, thank you. I'd appreciate that.
April?
We do give a non-compliant ID.
Oh,
So
you
that's
do
for
a
those-
non-compliant ID.
Yes.
Okay. Well, that answers your question, Delegate.
Well, then that should be available for every, under the same circumstances on this bill too.
Yes.
April,
it would
it's
be.
not in statute though. Is it like the driver's licenses?
Yes. We would just
It
give.
is-
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
So do we need, are we okay with the language as is? Do we need an amendment?
I don't think we need an amendment because none of this is really part of the bill.
That's what I thought.
Okay.
I just wanted to be clear. Okay, great. Any further discussion on the bill? Delegate Jacobs.
Thank you. There was a lot of back and forth there. I'm just trying to understand what the identification card, what's required to get that and you know, where's that stand with legal versus undocumented citizens? I just need to understand that. There was a lot of back and forth here.
Right, but let me make one thing clear. None of that has anything to do with this bill. None of those standards change. This is only who can get a duplicate ID card or an issuance of an ID card and issuance of a duplicate card without a fee. It's not changing the standards of what people have to show or who can get these IDs. It's just saying this category, like those who are 65 and older, are legally blind, et cetera, don't have to pay a fee to get their card.
I understand the fee
Okay.
part, but
Sure.
But there was talking about non-compliance, and there was a lot of back and forth on this thing. I just want to understand what documentation is there to get an identification card or not.
It's the same thing for licenses as for identification cards. You need to have real ID compliant documentation. If you don't have real ID documentation, then you can still get a driver's license and ID card, but it's not a real ID card. You can't use it to get on airplanes. You can't use it to get into federal buildings, variety of things like that. But you can drive with it if it's driver's license.
Okay. I remember that years ago. So tell me what's required then with real ID.
There's a laundry list of things and a variety of combinations, but generally Social Security card will get you a long way. And then sometimes you have to show mailing address, but it's got to be secure. It's federal law that makes the requirements.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, are we good to move the bill?
The bill.
So move.
Okay, hearing a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none. All those in favor of the bill, please say aye.
Aye.
Like,
Anybody opposed? Excellent. The bill passes unanimously. Okay, this one's going to be fun. Everybody ready for HB 107?
no,
Okay, Gretchen, would you like to share your screen, please? So, Patrick, you want to lead us through, please? Or how about will you, please?
Yeah. All right. Now let me go really broad here for a second. Just give you where we're at. This bill is pseudo cross-filed with the Senate bill. This bill was pre-filed and as such did not catch a lot of the changes that the Senate bill made. So the Senate bill is really kind of complete and easier to follow. The House bill has a bunch of amendments that comes close to making it the Senate bill. So right now the House bill expands the authority to monitor bus lanes statewide, including WMATA. It adds standing and parked vehicles to the vehicles that can be detected by the bus lane monitoring systems, and it creates a work group on curb spaces. And then the amendments that get it close to the Senate bill add bus stops and bike lanes to what can be monitored by the recording systems. For some reason, and we'll have to get an explanation on this, exempt private buses with 17 or more seats, allow them to use the lanes. I don't know why that is. Includes, as in people who can sign off on the citation, parking enforcement agencies and transit agencies, as well as law enforcement agencies. Also adds prohibitions, allows the use of the cameras for parking spaces that are prohibited from parking by signage, double parking, and blocking curb ramps for the disabled. It adds some privacy provisions, which is interesting in its own right for our purposes. And then it allows a technician, as we heard today on one of the other bills, allows a technician instead of a law enforcement officer to sign off on the citations.
Okay, so
and this reprint you have here, which Gretchen sent out to all of you yesterday, is the reprint with the sponsors' amendments.
So why don't we start going through, well, first of all, let me start with, are there any overarching questions? And then we'll start going through the bill text. Delegate Morgan.
my first overriding question is, remember, First of all, I'm happy it's enabling legislation, if I remember correctly.
Yes.
B, for the folks that live in the urban areas where they have these dedicated bus lanes, what do you do when the delivery truck parks in the bus lane to drop his merchandise off at a store because there's nowhere else for him to park along the way?
So that's a really good question, and I've asked similar questions to the sponsor, but we should get her answer or the company's answer to that. But my understanding is the way this works is a bus goes by, sees that there's somebody parked in the bus lane, and they record that as they go by, and then another bus comes by, and it's also recording. So if that person or that truck has been there for a certain amount of time, they're not just stopping and delivering.
Yeah.
Then they will get a citation, but we'll dig into that a little bit more. That's a really good question.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Delegate Stewart.
I think I know the answer to Delegate Morgan's question.
Great.
Which is that it is not allowed in Baltimore City, which I know that what the sponsor is thinking of. It's not allowed for anyone. It's not a bus to be in the bus lane, period. That's just current law. Delivery trucks already cannot go into the red bus lane. That's how it works in New York and DC and these other places that have bus lanes. No one can go there unless it's a bus. And then I think there might be exceptions in some states for emergency services vehicles in the case of like an emergency where they had to pull over or something like that. But it's current law that delivery trucks are not allowed in the bus lane. The question is, do we want to monitor that law to enforce it, or do we not?
The Delegate Stewart, I think, is right. And I'll read you the current law exceptions for Baltimore City are a school bus, a bicycle, an emergency vehicle, as Delegate Stewart mentioned, and a vehicle making a right turn at the next immediate intersection.
Great, thank you.
So
Yep, I got you, Delegate Healy, but there are some other folks as well.
that's okay.
So
Never mind.
Delegate Davis, Delegate Guyton, Delegate Ziegler, Delegate Healy, Delegate Davis.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Is this the bill from last year that was going to put cameras on all the buses in the city?
So, yes, and. So the bill from last year would have enabled the city to put cameras on the buses that are running in dedicated bus lanes. I don't know if the city has buses in non-dedicated lanes. But it ran into the challenge that they already had that authority. So yes, it is that bill, and now it goes statewide, and it's also including bike lanes, double parked cars that are parked in blocking curb cutouts that those who are disabled can use. So it's that bill and more.
Cameras all over the place. Okay, sorry.
Thank you. Delegate Guyton.
Thank you. I believe I might have just heard the answer to my question. So and I missed this whole hearing because I was doing a bill hearing myself. But so the cameras are not on the buses. So the cameras aren't they are, but they're not only on the buses. They are actually like on the curbs, on the buildings, on the street signs and other places. Because how else could you monitor all those?
I think that under current law, the cameras can be wherever they need them to be, but the bill does have language to ensure that they can use cameras on the buses.
Right.
Correct.
So the law, so I'm trying to figure it out. So would you get cited for being in a bus lane if there's no bus there coming? Or are you only going to be cited if the bus comes up behind you, catches you on their video, and you're actually in the way?
Well, you're subject to a citation if you're there and there's no bus there. Whether or not a camera gets you, that's just dumb luck.
Under this bill, does the camera get you if it's on the bus, or does the camera get you if it's on the corner? I mean, how's it going to work for bus lanes? Oop.
I'm guessing that they'll put most of the cameras on the buses, but they could still put them on the side, on the wall or something if they wanted to.
So currently, Baltimore City has fixed cameras at bus. I think Delegate Guyton is frozen. They have fixed cameras looking at bus lanes. The bill was initially intended to enable on-board bus cameras looking out at the bus lanes. The bill as written or as amended is actually broader than that. And it says the bus lane monitoring system means an enforcement system, including an onboard or fixed monitoring system that is designed to capture a recorded image of a vehicle involved in a parking or moving violation. So it's much, much broader than just on-board cameras.
And Madam Chair, we could probably ask Melissa to clarify what they're doing now.
We could. Let me go through the other questions and then I'll get there. Delegate Ziegler.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also missed the bill hearing, so forgive me if this is redundant, but I know this is something that is very important to the blind and the disabled, particularly the blind who, for whom it's really a problem. But I wanted to find out if anyone knows how successful Baltimore City's law has been in actually how well does it work in practice?
Melissa, would you like to take that?
Yeah, hi, I'm Melissa Einhorn from the MTA. And so I would have to confirm with BCDOT before I answer for them. But I know that MTA conducted an RFI over last fall, I believe. And we're working with BCDOT. I don't believe that they've procured any cameras as of yet. But I would have to confirm that with them.
Thank you.
Delegate Healy.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Is this a statewide mandate or is it enabling at the local level?
It's enabling.
Okay, so on state highways such as US 1, for example, I'm thinking like in College Park where there's a lot of businesses where there's only, I don't know that there actually is a designated bus lane or even if there's room for one, but who would decide whether there was one? Is that a state highway decision to make or is that a local government decision?
I would assume it would depend on who owns the road.
Well, it's
A
US
dedicated
1.
bus lane is only for buses. So if the county owns the road and they say this lane's only for buses, and if the state owns the road or Baltimore City who owns all
But
their
if it's
roads,
a state highway, if it's US 1 or some other state highway,
then only the state could create the bus lane.
only the state, and then the state would have to enforce it as well.
Not necessarily. No, I think the county could probably enforce it.
I'm just looking, probing to see if there's a conflict there. I'm just trying to understand it a little better. If the state creates a bus lane on a state highway and the local jurisdiction objects because they want, delivery trucks to be able to unload there or something, how does that get resolved?
It's the state's choice. It's a state highway.
Okay, that's what I understand. Thank you.
Delegate Ziegler, did you have another question?
No, I'm so sorry.
Okay. So there's a lot to digest in this bill. We can either close here and start going through, or start going through next time, or we can start going through it now. Delegate Addison, go ahead. You're muted.
I apologize. So you basically answered the question that everyone wanted to know, but I just wanted to say, if you're in Baltimore City and you're in the bus lane, you will get a ticket. regardless. The police officer can give you a ticket, the state. I work at City Hall when I'm not working here. And so we have those bus lanes. And if you're caught riding in that bus lane, you will get a ticket. So I just wanted to put that out to you. So no matter where you are in Baltimore City, if you're in that bus lane, you will get a ticket.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So what is the will of the committee? Should we close for now and come back and dig into the text of it? I see Delegate Jacobs nodding his head.
I think
Yes, sir, Delegate Morgan.
I'd say, yeah, since we just got the amendments today, or I just got the amendment today to read, I haven't had a chance to go through it, and there's one hell of a lot of strikes and moving pieces in this thing.
There are. Thank you, Delegate Davis.
Is there any appetite for just killing the thing? Should I make the motion?
I will tell you that I would like this. I mean, obviously that is the will of the subcommittee, but I would like us to dig into this a little bit. There has been a lot of requests. WMATA does it in DC and then they cross over into Maryland and they can't. So there's a lot of requests out there. So duly noted. And it is the will of the committee, obviously. Delegate Addison.
Can we dig into this bill some more? I think we need to dig into it before we kill it.
I hear you. We can also, obviously, you know, we can do whatever we want. The bill is the product of this subcommittee. We can amend it, we can kill it, we can pass it as is, we can do whatever we want. But I will ask you all to dig into it. And I've done some digging into what the various things are that it covers. So if you have any questions about what this article is or whatever, please feel free to shoot me a text or reach out. Okay. Thank you everyone for great work. I will see you next week. Yes, Melissa.
I just wanted to say, while you all dig into it, if there are any specific questions I can look into you before the next time you bring it up, I'm happy to address those. And I know Delegate Lewis brought in a lot of stakeholders on this bill, and so I'm also happy to, you know, connect with her or any of them as well to get some answers.
Great. Thank you so much. All right.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
everybody. Have a great night. See you tomorrow.
Good night.
Thank you.